Welcome to our podcast, Resilient Heroes, where we are dedicated to showcasing the incredible journeys and contributions of women in the field of emergency management. I'm your host, Laura James. Welcome back to Resilient Heroes, the podcast where we spotlight women who lead with resilience, curiosity, and calm. Today's guest brings a refreshingly interdisciplinary lens to emergency management, blending anthropology, higher education, and humanitarian response. Her career reminds us that resilience isn't always a straight line. Sometimes it's built by asking better questions, working across cultures, and showing up when systems are tested. Samantha Berman is a senior emergency management planner at ChristianaCare. Samantha, welcome to Resilient Heroes. We're so happy to have you with us today.
Hi, thank you very much. Happy to be here.
So, we love to get started with an origin story, especially the non-traditional ones, and yours is no exception. Your academic background began in anthropology and archaeology, and then that path eventually took you overseas to the UK, where you earned a Master of Science in Physical and Biological Anthropology, which is totally outside of emergency management. So what first drew you to anthropology, and when did you realize that understanding people and culture and those systems would translate into emergency preparedness and response?
Yeah, so I really did not know what I wanted to do when I went to college.
Like
Um,
most of us, right?
yeah, so I started taking some anthropology courses and I thought, "Oh wow, this is really interesting. I like this. This is something I would be willing to look into for the next 4 years." Um, and I did not know what emergency management was until I was halfway through graduate school. And I got a contract as a forensic anthropologist with Kenyan International Emergency Services, where they gave some training in mass fatality and emergency response. And I was like, oh no, that sounds good. I want to do that.
So interesting. Okay, so that sparked your interest.
Yeah. But
And
understanding peoples and cultures and systems is incredibly important in emergency preparedness and response because in any response you're dealing with people from different cultures and systems. So
and so when you look back, how has that lens shaped the way you approach planning, exercises, community resilience?
I think one of the most important things, when you're actually activated for a response or even when you're doing exercises is understanding your audience.
Yes.
So who you're talking to in a disaster situation, who you're educating during a training or exercise. Even in emergency management, worldview matters. And acknowledging
It
others may
does.
have a different one from you is really, really helpful because different people think about things differently, and that can lead to competing priorities and conflict even that you'll have to work through with people who may not be thinking in the same way you're thinking because different things are important to them based on their background, their upbringing, the community they live in, things like that.
That is amazing. And so from there, after your studies, you didn't stay purely academic. You moved into applied real world work, including volunteering. So what did volunteering teach you about leadership and adaptability and working in a high pressure environment?
So my first volunteering experience in the emergency management realm was with Team Rubicon at a vaccine center at the height of COVID.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
yeah, and that was really the first time I got to see the incident command system in action. And this experience was what really helped me understand the importance of everybody speaking the same language, clear reporting structures, and real-time flexibility that just helps avoid confusion and allow processes to work seamlessly between organizations that don't work with each other day to day, but all kind of speak the same language and have the same goal and are working towards the same thing.
So I'm just going to pause to say thank you for your service during that time. We know that Team Rubicon is an amazing organization, but honestly, it was tough to get volunteers during COVID. And we really relied upon the workforce, but it was such a scary time to put yourself out there in the volunteer world because there were so many unknowns and there was so much angst and I think fear based in our communities. So thank you for doing that. And thank you for putting yourself really right in the mix of it. In some of, our vaccine centers across North America were some of the most controversial places during the pandemic. So you just really got right in there.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
So, okay. So once you were in the field, was there a moment where you thought, this is the thing I'm going to keep doing? Like, this is my calling.
It probably was that first time at the vaccine center now that I think about it. But prior to that, I knew that this was what I wanted to do by just reading the news and publications about all of the amazing things that emergency management professionals do to keep people safe, provide assistance to them following what is probably the worst day or time in
Mhm.
their life. But definitely after that first volunteer experience, I knew that this was absolutely what I wanted to be doing.
You were bitten by the bug.
Absolutely.
Okay. And so from there, you went into consulting, which is, we know, a space that's super fast paced, it's deadline driven, and it requires really strong time management, which is not unlike emergency management in many ways. So, what did it teach you about prioritization and working under pressure? And like, did it feel like drinking from a fire hose for you? I mean, was it overwhelming at the beginning? How did you adjust?
Consulting was a wild place to start.
Yeah, I can't imagine, to be fair. I can't imagine starting there.
It absolutely felt like drinking from the fire hose, but I got such a wide range of experience while I was there that I am so grateful I had the opportunity. Consulting definitely taught me about time management. A lot of the time when you're consulting, you have a set amount of hours to complete certain tasks in. So starting out, I had no idea how long it would take me to do absolutely anything. I had never thought about tracking that before, but I learned really quickly how to do that and predict how long different tasks would take. And decision making under pressure. The best you can do, I learned in my consulting time, is use all the information you have at the time. You've got to be confident and you can't be afraid to admit that, like, based on new information, things need to change, right?
Yes, which is
So,
exactly what we do in the EOC, right? This is the decision we're making in the moment because this is the information we have. But in 15 minutes, that could be a totally different length depending on what
yeah,
comes in the door.
exactly. So, like, any type of incident requiring you to make decisions under pressure as a living, breathing entity,
Mhm.
you don't just make a decision and then it's done. It's a series of decisions you continue to make. And being able to say, I need to do things differently now that I have more information is a great strength. I did learn that during
Yes.
my consulting
Yeah.
experience. Admitting you don't know something or a decision you made may not have been the right course once new information is available is absolutely not a weakness.
100%. And you know what? It takes many of us resilient heroes a while to learn that. So, I mean, you unfortunately learned that right at the outset. But in government, it takes a long time to get through the after action reporting process and being open and honest about the realities of what happened and what could have been done differently. It's very different in government versus in consulting, where you're faced with those challenges kind of immediately with your clients.
Yeah, and as an emergency management and public health consultant, right after the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, 2021 to 2022, we were contracted to write a lot of AARs for
Yeah.
healthcare entities and stuff like that. And that is where I really got to listen to people talk about how they made decisions under pressure and things like that. And I was able to pull from that experience and what I heard people who really were in the trenches say.
And so would you take that time back, or do you feel like it was super valuable?
Oh no, it was so valuable. I'm so glad I did it.
And you and I have chatted about how you've had some really impactful and strong mentors during this phase of your career. And what made those mentorship experiences so formative for you?
Yeah, so I am still learning every day.
Mhm.
There are 4 people who have been really formative in my career, and those people are Chris Murtha, Alex Craig, Ed Durst, and Josh Walter. I do find myself meaning to thank them way more than I actually
Yeah.
do. They taught me a lot. At the top of that list is the need to be flexible, remain calm under pressure, and how truly important it is to just be nice to people. So, to all of you, if you end up listening, and so many more people I've encountered along the way, I just wanted to thank you for making me the person and emergency manager that I am today. I absolutely could not have done it without all of you.
I love that. And you said that you still try to keep up those bonds. You still think of those people on a regular basis when you're working. And I think that's so important. It's something we don't talk about enough in emergency management, that many of us who came up through non-traditional roles have had sort of non-traditional mentors, in that, we're not in standard emergency services. So we're not looking up to the chief, so to speak, or the deputy. We collect our mentors along our journey and keep them with us. So thank you for sharing that. And Resilient Heroes, we love a shout out here. So don't be shy to shout out to your mentors. And one thing you said there that I think is really important is how we treat others is part of our professional portfolio. And so treating people with kindness and empathy, it really changes the environment that you work in. And I think that is a great thing to learn early on in your career, especially when you learn it from a mentor who can say, listen, everyone we're working with, everyone we serve, they are all people in our community, and they have a voice. So like, I think that is such a great thing to learn early on.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Okay, so after some time in consulting, you made another move. And you're very much like many of our resilient heroes, moving throughout the different verticals in emergency management. You went to Penn State, which is a large campus, it's a higher education. And first you started as a student and then made your way into emergency management professional for Penn State. So I always look at higher education facilities and campuses as fascinating. They really are, no matter where they are, they're like small cities, small, close-knit communities. So talk to me about how it felt, first of all, to go from student to emergency manager, and then how is managing emergencies different on campus versus, in a community as a whole?
Sure. I do just want to shout out the Penn State Homeland Security Master's Program.
Yeah.
Um,
Do it.
I thought it was excellent. I had a great time throughout my experience in that program, and I would recommend it to others. There's a lot of different tracks you can take. It's pretty flexible, and I thought it was fantastic. Um, so as far as managing emergencies on a university campus, you really need to be adaptable in the way you approach planning, training, and response activities, because these things require so much input from other people who do not think about disasters every waking moment like we do.
Yes,
There's a lot
exactly.
of guidance and a lot of figuring out how to make our systems work for people who are not well versed in NIMS and ICS, work for them. So you need to consider, all the departments, and they all have different levels of knowledge. And it's pretty similar where I work now. So I'm really glad I had great mentors at Penn State that helped me get a handle on the best way to deal with those types of things.
And until I started working at BCG, where I am now, and we have a number of higher ed clients, I didn't have the opportunity to be as immersed in it as I am now, to understand that there are some regular planned events that are, huge campus-wide events. And when I think about it, it's very much like, a Santa Claus parade for a downtown core, and everything that goes into that. You can apply those same principles to move-in day and football games and these large campus-wide events where you have so many people coming on campus. You have the regular residents, and being able to see, how that all functions, and then overlay ICS on top of that. It's such an interesting way to manage folks.
Yeah, and absolutely. These planned activities are a real activation, but they're also a
Yeah.
great training opportunity.
100%. And so what surprised you about working in that environment? Was there anything that came as a surprise?
I don't know if it was necessarily a surprise, but just something that I didn't truly understand until I got there. But the sheer amount of connectedness between everything. Like emergency preparedness for a university the size of Penn State is all hands on deck, whether people
Yeah.
realize they have a role in it or not.
Yes, exactly. In ways that that's non-traditional when you look at emergency management in a municipality, right? We have key people that come and feed our operations and their teams may, but it's very different than how you operate on a campus. And so you got to meet when you and I were chatting, you really got to be interconnected and make relationships with every department across campus.
Yeah.
Okay, so from Penn State, you moved on again, and now you're in healthcare and you're working in healthcare emergency management at ChristianaCare. So, talk to me a little bit about how working for the healthcare system influences the culture of emergency management and preparedness and response. And what do you like about the new environment that you're in now?
Yeah, so at ChristianaCare, everyone is also involved in emergency response,
Mhm.
whether they know it or not. It is very similar to the way it works at a university, right? These private entities, everybody needs to come together to make things work.
So, are there values or perspectives that show up differently, whether you're planning or in your leadership role there, or post-event recovery, when care and compassion are the central mission to what you're doing?
I think hospitals are really interesting because they are a critical infrastructure and they cannot close no matter what.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
whatever happens, you need to maintain a safe and operational environment for your staff so your patients can continue to receive the highest level of care you can possibly provide. And that requires some heavy pre-planning for all different kinds of things. Recently, we had a winter storm that most of the United States experienced, where we had to ensure that even though conditions were really bad outside, we did as much as we could to ensure our staff had safe places to stay throughout the storm, should they choose to, because a lot of our units at the hospitals have minimum required staffing, even during a state of emergency that encompasses the entire Mid-Atlantic, you know?
Yes, I do know. So up here in Canada, just outside of the GTA, we were part of that winter storm as well. We were walloped. And listeners, just so you know, Sam and I were scheduled to record a week ago, but in preparation for the storm, we were both pulled in other directions, as is the case with all emergency managers when something's on the horizon. And just so you know, listeners, Sam is on her 12th day straight of working, but she still wanted to come on and chat with all of you. So thank you for that. And we all know how exhausted you are right now. So let's talk a little bit about women in EM. Emergency management in many ways is still a male-dominated field, especially in technical and leadership roles. So talk to me a little bit about moments you may have experienced where you felt like you had to prove yourself or navigate expectations differently because of gender. Or have you had those experiences?
So I think a lot of women around my age in their 20s in the field have experienced the young woman phenomenon.
Yes.
When you're younger than most of the people you're working with or your clients, and also a woman, you tend to see a lot of pushback and questioning that others might not. And I think, my advice to any woman in that position is it is important to stay confident and remember that you are the subject matter expert and you can handle a little pushback. You've got this.
I love that. So stand your ground and be confident in your knowledge and skills and ability.
Exactly.
And so what do you think that organizations can do? Because, I mean, you have been from the UK to all over the US. You have been part of many organizations and exposed to many different things. So, I mean, we can start anywhere, but what do you think that organizations can do to better support women who are just entering the field or wanting to advance or change their vertical within emergency management?
I think, it's a gap in education about the field before people even get into it.
I agree with that
Um,
100%.
I didn't know what emergency management was until I was 23. I was done with undergrad. I was halfway through my first master's before I even knew it was an option.
Hmm.
I think if emergency management in general, or, the options where there are emergency managers that are not your typical state, county, federal in the US, um, if it were more advertised in more female-dominated professions like public health, I think that would help a lot, and I think we did see a lot of women coming into emergency management through areas like public health following COVID-19 once more people became aware that it's an option.
100%. And I agree with that. I think I'm not sure if I told this story before, but my one of my girlfriends, she works in secondary education, and she had a career fair. I think there was about 600 families back in November, and I just set up in one of the classrooms. She had a classroom for all different professions across the board, and set it up really informally so that families and teenagers, starting at 14, to just come in and chat with a professional. Just have a conversation. Sam, I cannot tell you. I must have spoken to 100 families that came into my room. Emergency manager was the title on the door, and they had no idea that this field even existed. So I absolutely agree with you. We need to get the word out to just bolster our profession, and have teenagers really start to understand that this is something that you can start right out of high school. You can jump right in, and the field allows you to travel all over the world and do all types of different work. I mean, just in your time, you have been exposed to so many different places and spaces where emergency management is the core of what the organization is doing.
Yeah, and even during the setup for this storm, I experienced some of that as well. People, and a lot of it was women, saw me setting up for all these things and did not know, like nurses, residents,
Mm.
um, doctors, did not know that we had emergency management at the hospital. And they said, "Wow, I had no idea we had that. That is the coolest job."
There you go. Even organizationally, we sometimes don't know. So, yeah, I think getting the word out is a great thing to do. And I know that, LinkedIn is a place where we do that, but I would love to strive, for the next 5 years, for all of us who are resilient heroes to really start to look for opportunities to voice those things to the younger generation, to say, there's so many ways that you can grow in this field, and so many opportunities as a woman to grow in the field.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we talk a lot about professional resilience when we talk about emergency management. I know that this will be your first weekend off in 2 weeks for you. Um, but personal resilience matters just as much. So you mentioned to me that you play instruments, you're a musician, you play guitar, you play piano. What does music give you that emergency management doesn't? And how does that creativity help you stay grounded?
Emergency management kind of requires being on all the time.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. Well, you're on
this does
call
not.
24/7.
Yeah, you get to just mellow your brain a little bit. And I think there's a lot to be said for just taking a couple minutes to do something that doesn't require you to be on and thinking and on high alert all the time. It's really restorative.
And when things are intense, or you're overwhelmed at work, or you're just physically exhausted because you've been at it for so long, what helps you reset?
There's so much value in just talking things out,
Mhm.
whether there's an issue at work or not, or just like about your day, because there's always something when you're an emergency manager. Talking it out either at home or with a coworker, it helps me stay sane because I think the more you keep things in, the more you overthink and they fester.
I agree with that. Having a confidant to share your day with, or share your strategy with, or just bounce ideas off of, it just helps you decompress. And we've had a couple of Resilient Heroes panels where, we're making bonds together so that, next time somebody can say, hey, I remember that Samantha was talking about prepping for the storm at a healthcare facility, and I'm just going through that right now. Like the storm is over, we're in recovery, but I could really use somebody to chat with. That's one of the things we're all about here on Resilient Heroes is, introducing ourselves to each other so that we now have a network of people we can reach out to.
Yeah, and not only does that help you personally, but it helps you figure out how you might be able to do things better in the future as well.
100%. So you have built in a very short time, a career that weaves together science, social understanding, operational planning, and then obviously a call to service, which you feel very deeply. So for early career emergency managers, especially those from coming from a non-traditional background like yourself, what advice would you give them?
Hmm. Um, Collect experiences, volunteer, read literature, attend trainings. There is
Mhm.
so much to know about emergency management and disaster preparedness, and all things related. And we're all continuously learning, and the field is still very much evolving.
Liz.
So personally, I'm really excited to see what comes next.
So be open to anything. Don't say no to
Absolutely.
opportunities.
Mhm.
Even, it's hard to get out of, the office, but there are so many webinars these days that happen over lunch or just take an hour out of your day. Don't say no to those things when you see them. Just jump right in.
Yeah, for sure. They're so valuable.
Okay, Sam, if you could go back and talk to yourself 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and you were just starting out, what would you tell your younger self?
I would tell her, you will get the hang of it. Keep moving forward, and confidence comes with experience.
I love that. That's great advice. Okay, we always do a lightning round here on Resilient Heroes. So I want to hit you up with some questions, and I know that you have been working nonstop, so we won't hold that against you when when you're forced to come up with something on the fly.
It'll be more honest.
There you go. So one skill that you think every emergency manager should have in their toolkit, but it's never in a job description.
Personality management, even if you do not directly manage personnel.
I love that. I love that. I would call that, yeah, relationship massage.
Exactly.
That is a really great one. And it applies across the board. Like that's useful in regular life.
Mhm.
Okay, go to music genre when you need to decompress.
Usually indie pop or 2000s pop punk. I am such a product of the era I grew up in.
And so like if you get in the car, that is what is first thing on
If I
on
get in
the
the car, I'm turning on Panic at the Disco.
there you go. I love that. One item that you always want nearby during a long incident or an exercise.
Coffee.
Coffee. Black? What do you put in it?
I'm not too picky. If it's
So you'll
available,
just
I'll drink
you'll
it.
just take coffee. All right. The best advice a mentor ever gave to you.
Oh, I know. If you let yourself get too stressed out in this field, you'll have very high blood pressure. Don't sweat it.
Don't sweat it. And don't sweat the small stuff. And like back to earlier in this episode, we're making the decisions that we can make based upon the best available information at the time. And in EM, that can change moment to moment. So, I always like to think that my footing is never stable. Uh, you know? So
Yeah.
I think of it of kind of, being on a balancing board and recognizing that, I feel in control, the core is here, but at any moment, there's something that could influence our decisions, and we have to be ready for it. So I love that. Okay,
Mhm.
this is one of my favorite ones. One word that you would use to describe the future of women in emergency management.
Just one word?
You could use
Um,
a phrase, whatever
no,
you
no,
like.
I'm gonna do a word.
Okay,
Open.
open.
It's all in front of you. It is wide open.
It is what you're going to make it, honestly. You're a
Mhm.
perfect example of that. I mean, I would say you're still, at the beginning of your career. You still have,
Absolutely.
and the fact that you can share this journey, which has been non-traditional, but I mean, really, you have from consulting to volunteering to healthcare to higher ed. I mean, those experiences together give you so much depth that you couldn't find if you had stayed in one place during that time.
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind, but I'm so glad I did all of these things.
Sam, I want to thank you so much for taking the time from your busy recovery to speak with the Resilient Heroes today. Is it okay if I put your LinkedIn contact in the show notes so that if anyone wants to reach out to you, make a connection, ask you questions, is that available to them?
100%. Please don't ever hesitate to reach out.
Samantha, thank you for sharing your journey from anthropology to emergency management, from campuses to healthcare systems, and from theory to action. Your story is a powerful reminder that resilience is built at the intersection of people, preparation, and purpose. I have loved our conversations. I cannot wait to chat with you again in the future. And I hope that you stay safe and warm this weekend and that you have some downtime.
Oh, thanks so much. You too.
To our Resilient Heroes listeners, here's your challenge today. Think about the skills and passions that you bring from the outside world into your passion for emergency management. How can that make you a better practitioner, a better teammate, or a better leader? Resilience isn't just about response. It's about curiosity, adaptability, and bringing your whole self to the work that we do every day. Because unprecedented is what we do. Until next time, stay prepared, stay curious, and stay resilient. The opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Buffalo Computer Graphics. All content is for informational purposes only. Are you or someone you know a resilient hero and would be interested in contributing to our podcast? We would love to hear from you. Please contact us at RHpodcast@buffalocomputergraphics.com.